Hello and welcome to this review of Life is Strange. I'm playing the PS4 limited edition version. While it doesn't contain any extra content, it does have the soundtrack and art booklet, and it's quite a nice little presentation. But that's not all important. What's more important is the game itself. This game is a story driven, plot based game which revolves around you playing as the character Max, a young woman at the college who studies photography, and one day while hiding out in a bathroom discovers she can rewind time. This is because one of her housemates, Nathan, pulls a gun on a girl with blue hair and shoots her. Max freaks out and suddenly finds herself back in her classroom 5 minutes ago. And she uses this power to save that blue haired girl's life. And it turns out this is her old friend Chloe. It turns out Chloe's friend Rachel is missing. And the two team up to go on this adventure to try and find out what's happened to Rachel and to try and discover what is up with Max's powers. The gameplay is very similar to a lot of these other games. You control your character running around in third person. You can interact with objects around the world, most of which just fill you in on information around the world, some of which give you clues to progress the story, and then you also talk to other characters to try and get these clues and progress the story. The gimmick here is the ability to rewind time. So you can find info, turn back the clock, talk to someone, and use this information. Find a bit more, find an emotional connection on someone who doesn't like you, and then rewind time to the beginning of the conversation to then use those emotional connections to help coax some more information out of someone. And it works quite well for the most part. This gameplay, I don't really have any major complaints about it. There's nothing that really struck me as awkward, except that towards the end of the game, it gives you a big stealth section that really you haven't been trained to do throughout any of the game. There was one little stealth bit earlier in the game, but again, you use the rewind feature anytime you get caught to go back a few paces and redo your strategy. And so I can't complain about that, although it felt like a lot of what I was doing was busy work. I found that really on each of the episodes. So I found that I'd take 2 hours to complete each one, making for a 10-hour experience, but that really only about 30 minutes of each episode felt like it was contributing to the whole Rachel situation. And the rest of it just seemed to be going around, I guess, trying to build the world that the story is in. So it's clearly that it wants to be an emotional journey, and that is more about dealing with the characters themselves than trying to win. And it sort of works. Like the graphics really hamper this. As yes, it's not the best graphics, but it's really that the characters don't express much. And the voice acting and the music do try and make up for this. The voice acting I thought was really good at helping convey the emotion, and the music plays up nicely when it does. But there's little bits of this style. It's like the beginning of each episode is about 5 minutes of just, music, and I guess you call it opening credits, but it's really like reintroduction, and then the title comes up. And the same at the end, where there's like usually a reflective period of a couple of minutes where the music plays. And it was kind of like after playing a couple of them back to back, you just like, come on, get back into it. So I know what I'm doing. Now I'm not talking about like the flashback at the end of beginning of each episode, which tells you what happened in the previous one. It's literally like the next part of the episode where you're reintroduced, and that was very annoying. And the biggest gripe I have on all of this, because yeah, a lot of it worked and a lot of it um, was kind of this emotional journey, is it all becomes mute at the end. And I'll try not to go into too much spoilers here, but basically, you're given a lot of decisions to make throughout the game, like you do in all these kinds of games, and they affect the story in some way. Um, so just going off what I thought, it felt like it wasn't really going to affect much, and it turns out that even the big decisions you make in the game don't affect much or anything, in fact. The only bit that affects the end of your game is the final decision. And in this kind of game, that's atrocious. The final decision. There are two endings to this game, depending on whether you click to go for ending A or click to go for ending B. Any other decision you've made throughout this story does not affect that. And that really felt like I just wasted my time. And honestly, I don't think I can recommend this game based on that. Right? It was a nice try and a nice experiment, but clearly it was poorly executed, which is a shame because a few tweaks and a bit more thought on how the story could progress, this could have been brilliant. But as it stands, it's not, and it's really hard to go into detail why. But I'd recommend any other game on decision making, over this one. Even ones that only have like a couple of endings, such as Fahrenheit or even like Mass Effect. Have more decisions that affect your ending than this one did. So, and if you're gonna go for the big ones, like Heavy Rain was a much better way of implementing this style system. Until Dawn did this much better. And so that is my thoughts on Life is Strange. It was a nice try, but it just fails, and yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. That's the spoiler-free section of this. I'd like to just now go into spoiler territory and just explain why this ending is such a faux pas for me. So it is spoilers now. If you don't want to listen to this, please stop. If you're happy to listen to this, let's carry on. So Max travels back in time. Throughout the game, we established that she can do this, like maybe go back a couple of minutes, sort of thing, or to the beginning of the section that you're stuck on. About episode 3, she's holding a photograph and discovers she can jump into the time period that photograph was taken. Like, assuming she was in the photograph, or like had taken the photograph. So there's one of her and her friend Chloe that was taken like 5 years ago on the day her father died. And she jumps back and she saves Chloe's dad. Chloe's dad dies in a car accident. She hides the car keys, and then that changes everything. So you get back to the present, and suddenly like Max is part of the cool kids, and she runs off to Chloe's place and finds that Chloe's dad is alive. But the consequence is that now, when Chloe was growing up, she now had a horrific accident and is completely paralyzed, is in agonizing pain and dying slowly. It gives you a really big decision on whether you euthanize her or not, which felt like a big moment until you jump back into the photograph and then do it all. So making what was supposed to be a real big emotional part of the story like completely mute because it didn't happen. And it felt like everything I did, like there were characters that died. There's a girl I failed to save from killing herself. It doesn't matter because the final part of the game is that this tornado has finally turned up, and the tornado is caused by the fact that Max saved Chloe in the beginning. It's this because of butterfly effect or chaos theory, something that the designers weren't smart enough to kind of delve into, but no buzzwords for. And that's your choice. You either go back to the photograph you took at the beginning of the game, which puts you back into the bathroom, and hide out, don't save Chloe, which involves that Nathan shoots her, Chloe dies, Nathan gets arrested, and Nathan turns out to be the protege of the serial killer who killed Rachel and rats him out. So everything is tied up in a nice little bow, that the town is fine, but Chloe is dead. Or you have the other decision where you tear up the photograph, Chloe is fine, everyone else in the town dies. And the town is wiped out by the tornado, and you two drive off in the sunset, not caring what's behind you, moving on with your lives. So, no matter what relationships you've built, what relationships are going against you, none of that matters. Absolutely nothing. It was all busy work to get to this point, which, you know, kind of works as a narrative in a movie or a TV show, but as something that I put time and effort into, felt like a huge betrayal, especially the going back to the beginning of the game. And, you know, it's like, why did I have time travel powers to begin with? Like, a couple of characters mention that when you get into that point and find out that the tornado is your fault because of you changing time. And they're like, but you must have had these powers for a reason. And it's like, yeah, the reason was not to use them. So it was that kind of pretentious like crap and the feel of just wasting time that just put the nail in this game's coffin for me, which is a shame because I really, really wanted to like it. And I really want to say go out and buy it and support it. But it's bad. It is bad. And I can't support bad. So that's it. That's my problem with the game, and it ruined an entire experience for me. If you have your own opinions, put them in the comments below, or if you agree with mine, say mention that too. But I am out of here, and I will see you next time when I decide to talk about something else.